We're talking about Renfield today on Gene and Roger Talk Movies.
Renfield.
Yeah, it came out just back in April to the theaters and quickly
It's
disappeared and is now on streaming. And
well,
so,
it's like that's how movies go. This
yeah, it does
mhm,
seem to be the new thing for these movies. So,
the new
Gene,
normal.
initial thoughts on Renfield?
Renfield. Remember, it's called Renfield. So when you're watching it, you'll be thinking, "Oh, where's the vampires?" Because well, it's called Renfield. It's all about the vampires. Nicolas Cage, the vampire Count Dracula's assistant, and his assistant is called Renfield. But I do have to say this, and I wrote this down. Is like if you like the following things, if you like horror movies that have lots of blood, high body counts, the sound of breaking bones, heroes and villains, then you are going to love this movie because this movie's got a lot of that. So, yeah, as for thematic elements, I really thought this movie kind of like, I mean, it's horror comedy for sure. I mean, lots of it are just really funny. I mean, I really like this movie. But I think on a deeper level, it kind of deals with the theme of like the supremacy of human speech. Is that, I don't know, people think, oh, actions are greater than words. No, 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 no. You can definitely put forth the argument that words have absolute power and that words drive actions and that words are greater than actions. And I think this movie kind of gets into that little dynamic, well, not what I say little. This movie gets into that dynamic and that words have immense power in our lives and that we need to be aware of the words that we use in our lives. Yeah. It's
Well,
a great movie. It's
and
good.
the and
It's
the
good stuff.
words the words spoken about us that we accept too.
Right, and even what we words, yeah, very good. And the words we talk to about ourselves, our inner monologues, and the words that we use to describe the world, it drives our reality. So but and it's also the power of words is that if we choose to use different words, we can change our realities. We can become even, do I dare say, even different kinds of people. We just have to change our words. I think this movie gets into that. And it's a deep topic, but I think the directors, producers, writers of the Renfield are definitely making that point.
Right, and of course, it's this very smart and thought-provoking point is surrounded by massive amounts of gore.
Like I said, lots of blood, lots of breaking bones.
Well, and that's the thing. Nicolas Cage is playing Count Dracula here, and he
Yes,
clearly
does
is
great.
having a great time
Great time.
portraying
You can
Count
tell.
Dracula.
You can tell.
And I loved the fact that they, because they give you like a 3-minute backstory of how
Very
we got to
beginning,
this
right.
point, right? Because it starts out with Renfield in a kind of a self-help group. Oh, you're in a toxic
Right.
relationship, and he's listening to other people. But there's these flashbacks then using background footage from the original Bela Lugosi Dracula
Yes.
with Nicolas Cage and the young man who portrays Renfield, whose name I can't remember that actor right now.
I don't remember his name.
But they're in the scenes redoing exactly what was happening with Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and it's a really nice way to set the tone there.
Yeah, they pay homage to the legacy of vampire movies.
Right,
Yes.
they absolutely do. And even a smaller thing is right at the beginning, there's this action sequence where these two priests are trying to capture Dracula and
Right.
this and that. Well, one of the priests is William Ragsdale doing a cameo there, who, for those of us who are totally into horror films, he was Charlie Brewster in the original Fright Night. So I thought it was neat that they drug him out of retirement because I don't
Yeah.
think that guy's doing anything. But just
No,
for
no,
this,
and his in Renfield.
this one little minute scene. And there's also another great cameo from Caroline Williams, who, if you remember Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, she played Stretch in that film. So it was nice to see her for all of
Nice.
5 seconds as the, the lawyer for that creepy criminal guy.
Okay, yeah. I remember
But
her scene.
yeah, this is a really smart story. I like how it plays
It's well
out.
put together, I thought.
It moves right along. It's only 93 minutes long. It moves right along. And the thing, Gene, I want to, there's a lot of thematic elements here, but the thing that really surprised me as I was watching it is this to me potentially belongs in the realm of John Carpenter's The Thing or maybe Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where here's this movie Nobody goes to see it. And years later, it's kind of developed this, no, this was a really good movie, and it deserves a lot more credit than it got when it first came out.
Yeah, I can see that. The movie's well put together. It's intelligent. You know, again, goes back to the power of words. And you know, movies like they gain a cult following, and you know, they emerge, you know, later on.
Yeah.
So it could definitely happen with Renfield.
I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I'm
Yes.
the only one who really likes it as much as I do, but it just strikes me as that with the level of gore, there's like 3 or 4 major set pieces which are just blood drenched in comedic violence.
Right.
I'm laughing out loud where there's this big assault by these police officers, because the entire police force is corrupt except
Right.
for this one girl
Right.
and her sister.
Rebecca and her sister, who works for the
The
FBI.
FBI. And
Well,
there's
the FBI's independent, so they're not corrupt by definition.
right. And so there's this one sequence where the FBI or the police force, they're going to come get Renfield, and he at one point rips this guy's arms, both of his arms off,
Right.
is then beating another guy with the severed arm, and then he hurls both arms at 2 different guys and impales them to the wall. And
With his arms,
Right.
with the dude's
the
cut off
dude's
arms.
And that's the level of comedic violence, but blood is just exploding off of these people in
Oh,
the most
yeah.
comedic way, and it's a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah. That particular scene, I wanted to actually talk about that scene because there's a lot of blood, and like they're fighting in like an apartment complex, you know, and in a way, and it's a big shootout too because the police have their guns and they're blasting with their automatic weapons, and then the girl Rebecca, she has her service, you know, not revolver, but she has her service 9mm. She's blasting away. But this shootout, the apartment complex, reminded me in a way it was like an homage to other movies that had big shootouts in apartment complexes. So while I was watching it, it made me think of Chris Hemsworth Extraction Part 1, you know,
The Raid.
Even The Raid, very
Yeah.
good, The Raid Redemption. And it also made me think of the movie End of Watch, a police movie, but it also had a big shootout sequence in an apartment complex. So I thought that maybe, you know, they were paying homage to that. So when that was going on, I was thinking of those movies.
Well, and just blood-soaked, though. I mean, the level
They were
of
just
over-the-top
bodies
gore.
all over the place. Yeah, and it was just funny. And there was an earlier scene in there's a bar in New Orleans. Yeah, and it's just funny. It's like Count Dracula. He desires victims, so he gives Renfield a list of victims. It's like, Renfield, please, I need unsuspecting tourists. I need people in love. I need bus full of cheerleaders.
He wants the nuns also.
And also I need nuns. Yeah. So they go to a bar, and in the bar, who do you see in the bar? There are unsuspecting tourists, couples in love, in a bar in New Orleans, 4 nuns sitting at a table.
And then driving by outside.
And then driving by outside in a big, huge bus. Who pulls up? Busload of cheerleaders. So he has all of his victims. He has Count Dracula's list right there. But does he fulfill the list? No, because Renfield is unhappy. And that's what goes back to Roger at the very beginning, because he's going to a self-help group. And I wrote down the affirmations because I think, you know, the power of words is that because at the beginning, you know, there's affirmations that are said to the group. And the affirmations are, I'm just going to read it because I thought it was, again, going back to the power of words. It says, I am enough, and I have enough, and I am capable of change because I love myself. I am taking full charge of my life today. And then Renfield, after hearing that, after the first session, he ridicules it and mocks it. It's like, these people, they're pawns. They're going to be dead, you know, because they don't know that these are just meaningless things, you know. But as he comes on, as the movie progresses, he kind of has a big change of heart.
Right. And I do love the scene later when, I can't remember the exact word, but he's like, oh, I can't give him ultimate power or whatever.
Right.
And
right.
the little, I don't know, psychologist guy or whatever is like, well, that's
Mark,
one way to put it. I wouldn't have put it exactly
exactly.
like that. But
you can't get full power.
right.
You
Yeah.
can't get full power, yeah.
You know, but again, it's just a really smart, tightly put together film. It just starts and it's moving right away, and it never slows down.
Yeah, I remember when I was watching it, I was a little perturbed at the beginning because it seemed like, well, where's the vampires? Where's Nicolas Cage? Because they showed a flash of him, but then you have to remember the movie's called Renfield. It's about the assistant. It's not really about Nicolas Cage, the vampire, And so if you put that in your mind, then the movie just really flows. But I remember that they had this action sequence again at the New Orleans bar. And this is where where Renfield really has this revelation, because he runs into this cop, and Rogers introduced this cop already, Rebecca, and the actress is Aquafina. I think she goes by a single name, but I really like this actress. She's in this one movie called Farewell, which is one of my favorite movies probably. But yeah, she just really got great comedic timing, and so Rebecca's in the bar. And the cops come in, going in to get Renfield. And there's big shootouts, and Renfield, I guess he gets power when he eats bugs. So he eats some bugs, and he cuts arms off of the bad guys with the serving platters and stuff like that. Big shootouts. But there's this one scene where Rebecca is backlit to like a stage, and it's like lights are shining on her. And it's like Renfield has an epiphany. And it's like, oh man, it's like you can stand up to people. You don't have to just cower down all the time. You can be a hero. You don't have to always just listen. And
right, and follow.
Yeah,
what
and
you're
follow.
told.
Right.
Well, and I also like that too, where Renfield is kind of almost like a superhero, like a undead Popeye or whatever, because he carries these bugs around in this little tin.
Yes.
And so anytime he needs his superpowers, he just opens the tin
Pops
and
them up.
eats a bug, and then he's doing, Iron Man flips, Captain America twirls, all this crazy superhero stuff. But it's just a lot of fun when he's doing that, because he's a shrimpy little guy.
Oh, he's not big at all.
And then there's this one guy, his name's like Apache Joe or something right at the beginning.
Yeah,
He's
one of the gangster guys, yeah.
Huge giant guy, and Renfield just takes him to school because he's got his superpower bug.
Oh, yeah, that guy,
essence,
the guy who has like you reminded me of like your movie, the
Leatherface.
Yeah, Leatherface, because he was like covered with a mask of like human skin. It looked it's horrible, but
then
Renfield knocks his head off.
Yeah, the level of comedic violence here is Renfield punches him in the head, and it blows his head completely off with this geyser of blood coming out from his neck, and
I know.
The head goes out this warehouse and hits this guy's car, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, the head of the gang syndicate hit his car, and he starts freaking out.
Right, and and I just go back to, I'm surprised, this movie cost $65-70 million to make.
Was it really that much?
It only made $17 million in the U.S., $26 million worldwide. And I'm just like, what happened here? And I was thinking back to like
That's interesting.
The advertising, and the advertising was really heavily focused on Nicolas Cage's Count Dracula.
Sure.
And I'm wondering, well, is it because people are like, well, Nicolas Cage, he's not really serious anymore because he's just in everything, and maybe it's not worth it. But the marketing or something was wrong here, because this movie should have been a much bigger moneymaker than it was.
Yeah, I can't comment on that, but if it only made 17 domestic, 26, world, it deserved better for sure.
Yeah.
But that just happens. The movie industry is like that. You put a lot of money into a movie and it's good, and this movie is good, but does it really do spectacularly well?
Yeah. And I'm mentioning it, but of course, did I go see it at the theater? Nope, I sure didn't. And I'm like, I remember seeing the ads for it, and I was like,
Yeah, did I see it at the theater? No, actually I didn't. Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of made a mistake there. I should have supported this movie.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it didn't get word of mouth. Lots of times movies aren't made for word of mouth. Maybe like I talked a little bit about before, and it seemed to start a little slow. Maybe I'm expecting that. Maybe it's their marketing. They market it as kind of a vampire movie, but they should market it more as maybe the assistant. Because you're expecting vampire, but you see a lot of assistant. So I remember even thinking while watching the movie the first time, I was, where are the vampires? So maybe the expectation was set up wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't understand it. And again, I could be in the complete minority and I'm just a fool, but I just am surprised at how much I enjoyed this film and
Yeah.
how poorly it has fared at the box office.
Yeah, hopefully it catches a wider streaming audience, you know, because it's available on streaming now. And,
Hmm.
you know, and so I don't know. Actually, streaming, I actually had to rent it off of Prime. So
Yeah, it's streaming for free on the Peacock network.
Peacock, yeah.
Which is one of the many that I have. So I got to see
Yeah,
it, quote
yeah.
unquote, for free.
Yeah, we have, what do I have? We have Prime because my wife's business, and then Netflix. I think we have Disney Plus. I think that's all we have. Whatever.
Yeah,
Who cares?
who knows? But it's just, again, this movie's really tightly constructed. It's got a good payoff at the end where Renfield does change who he is, who he was, becomes a different person based on what Gene was saying earlier about, yeah, listen to what, really dig deep into what these words are and how you're perceiving them and how you're thinking about yourself, and think about the world you could have. And it's a world you could make if you get out of this toxic relationship.
Right, right. And he decides to give the words actually the power that they demand. And like this movie also has like I just have to share it. It has a personal connection with me, because like I lived in New Orleans for a little while, and this movie was shot in New Orleans, and there's this one scene where Renfield is with his like romantic interest, which is Rebecca, and they're sitting at a cafe, and anyway, that cafe is called Cafe Du Monde, and it's right there in New Orleans, and it's right in front of a big cathedral called the St. Louis Cathedral. And anyway, and New Orleans, I proposed to my wife right there in Cafe Du Monde, in front of that church. So it's like, whoa, and then they're shooting the movie right there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. Definitely had some New Orleans memories for sure. But yeah, so I have this connection with this movie, and it's really surprised me when that scene appeared. And so yeah, and later on it goes on in the Renfield. I think the relationship helps the relationships with Rebecca, and she's somebody who has made it part of her core being is to fight and to try to do what's right. And the whole New Orleans police force is totally corrupt and under the thumb of this gang family. Yeah, I'm not going to get any more. I could probably say, but I'm not going to get into that. But and I think Rebecca, definitely Rebecca inspires Renfield. And then they go out to this climactic battle, and he has to face and Rebecca tells him that. He tells Renfield is that if you're going to be free, you're going to have to face, your tormentor. You're going to have to face Dracula. And he does. And he decides to do it. And he uses those same words that were said to him earlier, but he realizes now that these words actually have immense power. And he confronts Dracula, and he says virtually the same words. And I'm going to say them. He says, because I bought the movie and I could pause it, So he says, I am enough. And I have enough. I deserve happiness. I am grateful for all that I am, and I take full charge of my life today. And so, as he's saying that, he's like punching Nicolas Cage
repeatedly in the face.
Repeatedly, and then Nicolas Cage, it's like you could see power draining out of him, and the power going to Renfield, because he has taken charge of his life through the words that he uses. And then they use this like incantation, and then they chop up.
Well, and I love that part too, because there's a few voiceover segments where Renfield kind of getting the audience up to speed. And at the end here, where they're trying to dispose of Dracula, he says something along the lines of, there's lots of different folk tales out there of how to get rid of a vampire. And so they're chopping him up. They're putting him in cement. They're putting holy water all over him. They're putting acid on him. All this stuff.
They're cutting him up with a chainsaw.
Yeah. So
and then they get all the little pieces, and then they throw him into a concrete mixer. So they encase his body pieces, concrete.
Yeah, and of course, for those of you who saw all the Hammer Dracula films, that's kind of how they did each one of those with a different way to kill Dracula. So that was also nice to see.
Yeah.
The other thing I will point out about this movie, if you're offended by foul language, oh, this movie earned its R rating, boy.
Yeah, this movie, well, it's just funny, though, because of Rebecca. She spares no language when talking to her coworkers. And I'm just like, if you talk to your coworkers, I don't know where you can talk to your coworkers like that and get away with it. But I guess, the coworkers know, we're talking New Orleans police, they know that they're corrupt.
Right.
They know that they've been bought off. So this girl, said, F you this and F you, Kyle.
Right, yeah.
Kyle seems to get the brunt of the F you. But, which is really funny. But yeah, she spares no language.
Yeah, this
especially
movie,
on those coworkers. Yep.
Yeah, rightfully rated R. Extreme levels of violence.
Yep.
Extreme language throughout. Every time you see the Rebecca character, get your seatbelt on because she's just going to be unleashing them,
blasting. yeah. And I didn't know that, though. Do you know what this is? This vampire lore is that the blood of a vampire can heal you?
Well, they've done that in you've seen it in various movies before where blood can do that. It can bring you back. And, there was Scars of Dracula, I think, where they actually had a vampire bat that they cut open so it could bleed on Dracula's corpse so he could come back. So it's kind of all over the place.
I remember watching this. Yeah, actually, I watched this black and white vampire movie. Like the castle was surrounded by this moat, and it was black and white. And so this assistant, the vampire had an assistant, but it was a woman, and she lured I think her husband to this downstairs room, and then she stabbed him, and then she hoisted his body up like above Count Dracula's grave, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then she moved the lid, and then she cut the guy's throat, which is all really gruesome, right? But then his blood goes on to Count Dracula, and it resurrects him.
Right.
So I guess to answer my own question, I'm thinking about it a little deeper. Yeah, blood can, in this lore, blood is a healing thing.
Right, and it is kind of funny because they do save a big jar of Dracula's blood, and of course they label it Dracula's blood.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, like when you go to these self-help groups, they always have their plate of donuts, and right next to them they have their coffee pot. But here at the end of the movie, there's next to the plate of donuts, muffins. It's a big jar of vampire blood.
Dracula's blood.
It says Dracula's blood because you can get a cup and get it and you can be healed.
Yeah, you're all healed up. So, Gene, anything final about Renfield?
Yeah, I will have to say this. I really like this movie. Actually, I showed it to my 15-year-old, and the dude loved it. And I will say this, even though we mentioned all of this, lots of blood, high body count, sound of breaking bones, heroes and villains. Yeah, when you walk away from this movie, though, you feel empowered. Mm-hmm. I guess in a way, because that message kind of, if you're paying attention, it resonates with you. Is that it's like the power of words. You just have to change your words, and you can affect. You can affect big things by changing your words.
Yep, and the acting across the board is top notch. Nicholas,
if you have any, Nicolas Cage is great.
Yep, if you have any concerns about Nicolas Cage slumming, absolutely not. He is just engaged fully with the Count Dracula character, top to bottom. The acting is great, and it's a lot of fun. And just like Gene said, when that movie ended, I was like, that was a winner. Again, shocking it hasn't done better. But check it out on streaming and let us know what you think. Maybe we're both idiots, but I doubt it because it's a pretty good film. But hey,
leave a comment, and we love your comments.
Yeah, and next week, our friend Scott Eggleston, director of Bad Bones, which was back, I think, episode 14 or something. But he'll be back because he texted us saying, hey, have you guys seen Smile? Because I really want to come on your show and talk about Smile. So
and that's streaming as well.
Yeah, that's available all over the place. So come check us out next week when we'll have Scott here and we'll be talking about Smile.
Smile.
All right, check out Renfield and we'll catch you the next time.
All right, later.
Bye-bye.